Did one simple email just expose years of silence, betrayal, and unanswered questions in a family that once promised forever? Today, we are diving into the moment that changed everything. And trust me, you will not see this twist coming. So hit subscribe right now and join our community, because the real story starts where the cameras usually stop. The question did not sound dramatic at first. It sounded casual, almost accidental. Did you just see my email? Is that why you came in? But underneath that simple sentence was a storm that had been forming for years. Because the email was never just an email. It was another reminder of something unfinished, something paused but never properly closed. And when the response came back, "No, what email?" the air in the room shifted, because both of them knew this conversation was about to go somewhere deeper. Another customer had written again about a My Sister Wives closet order, jewelry purchased with excitement, money sent in good faith, and nothing ever arriving. And now the request was simple: either send the item or send the refund. But the simplicity of the request exposed a larger complication. The business had been put on hold years ago. Dreams shelved, priorities shifted, relationships strained. Yet the online cart was still active, like a door left unlocked, and every now and then someone would slip through, place an order, and unknowingly trigger a ripple effect that reached into lives that were no longer synchronized. Notifications landed on phones, screenshots were taken and forwarded, responsibility was passed carefully, almost cautiously, because communication now felt more like a formal exchange than a natural flow. And that subtle change was the real headline. It feels like the only time you talk to them is when they need something or when you need to give them information. The words were honest, not cruel, but heavy because they carried the weight of accumulated silence. There was a time when conversations lasted for hours, when support was instinctive, when loyalty felt unquestioned. But now everything seemed scheduled, limited, purposeful, and stripped of warmth. And the realization settled in that healing cannot be one-sided. You cannot rebuild a bridge if you are the only one laying down planks. For years, there had been a bond, strong, visible, unwavering, at least on the surface. And now, looking back, it raised uncomfortable questions. Why tell me you want a relationship and then disappear for months? Why say we are close and then create distance that feels intentional? During the period when the world shut down and rules defined daily life, when families were navigating fear and uncertainty, why were doors not opened? Why were children kept apart when they could have played safely outside? Why did it feel like permission was required just to exist in each other's space? Explanations came, schedules were chaotic, 5 kids were constantly home, online school consumed energy, travel complicated coordination. Everyone claims they wanted more time together, but wanting and making it happen are not the same. And somewhere in that gap, resentment quietly took root. Viewers have debated endlessly. Was it manipulation? Was it strategy? Was it unconscious favoritism? But even those directly involved hesitate to label it that way because assigning intent feels dangerous and unfair. Yet something undeniably shifted when a new closeness formed, when excitement wrapped itself around exclusivity, when it began to feel like there was an insider and then everyone else. And that perception, whether intentional or not, changed everything. Because once you feel outside, it is hard to step back in. And the confusion deepened when kindness appeared one day and distance the next, when affection felt real in private, but alignment seemed different in public, and that contradiction created emotional whiplash. There was a time when loyalty was demonstrated fiercely, when support was offered even if others withdrew, when defending each other felt automatic. But after the move, something changed. No one can pinpoint the exact second, but they all acknowledge it happened, and the move became a symbolic dividing line, a before and an after. And in that after period, conversations thinned, trust weakened, and the sisterhood that once felt foundational began to look fragile from the outside. From the outside, it may have seemed gradual, but inside it felt sudden, like waking up one morning and realizing the atmosphere is different and no one announced why. And just when the tension around the business and the fractured communication seems like the central storyline, another chapter unfolds that shifts the emotional tone completely. A baptism, a personal decision made by a young woman exploring faith on her own terms, church shopping, visiting different congregations, listening, learning, choosing, and finally deciding to be baptized. And that choice carries weight because it represents independence, a step outside tradition, a redefinition of belief. Memories surface of a childhood baptism at 8 years old. Strict rules, full immersion, not a hair out of place. Solemn silence, male authority guiding the ritual. And now the setting is entirely different. A watering trough, painted carefully to blend into the room. Music playing, energy high. Women baptizing women. Friends gathered with enthusiasm. And rather than resistance, there's a surprising willingness to roll with it, to support, to adapt, to whisper a familiar prayer, quietly honoring personal belief while respecting the chosen path of someone stepping into adulthood. And when she rises from the water, smiling, radiant, joyful, the atmosphere shifts from tension to celebration, applause, laughter, pride. A dinner planned, seating arrangements discussed, light-hearted jokes about being a gentleman. And yet, even in celebration, reflection sneaks in, an admission that perhaps jealousy was not handled well, that self-protection overshadowed collective growth, that everyone may have been looking out for themselves instead of asking, how do we build something stronger together? How do we create a better whole? There is acknowledgement that this lifestyle was complex, demanding, emotionally intricate, and perhaps God was not centered as intentionally as needed in such a challenging structure. And that introspection is significant because it moves away from blame toward responsibility. And yet, the comparisons linger because relationships are rarely evaluated in isolation. They are measured against each other. And someone observes that there seems to be more connection with one person than another. That when a major life change occurred, a move, a goodbye, a transition, one person might not have shown up without encouragement. And that suggestion stings because presence during pivotal moments communicates value. And when an unexpected visit happens, tears are shared, a meaningful gift is given, words of regret spoken. It feels sincere, but also complicated because timing matters and context matters. And soon after, when an invitation to simply spend time together is met with honest hesitation, I do not know how to be friends with my ex-husband's wife. The rawness of that statement lands heavily. It is not cruel, it is truthful, because labels like sister wife do not automatically erase emotional boundaries. Once a marriage ends, dynamics shift, identities change, and rebuilding requires conversations that have not yet fully happened. And beneath that hesitation lies a deeper uncertainty about transparency, about whether complete honesty would ever truly exist. And that uncertainty becomes the quiet suspense threading through everything, because trust, once questioned, does not easily restore itself. And the metaphor of the paused business returns, an online cart still active, orders slipping through, reminders arriving unexpectedly, just like unresolved feelings that surface when least convenient. And the audience senses that the real drama is not explosive, it's layered, subtle, human, built from small moments of exclusion and attempts at grace, from whispered prayers and forwarded emails, from dinner tables and unopened conversations. And what keeps everyone watching is not just curiosity about what happened, but anticipation of what will happen next. Whether the next notification will reopen old wounds or spark new understanding. Whether the next invitation will be accepted or declined. Whether accountability will deepen or distance will solidify. Because in the end, this is not a story about villains or heroes. It's about people navigating change imperfectly, learning in real time how to let go, how to hold on, and how to redefine connection when the structure that once defined it no longer exists. And that ongoing question about whether bonds can evolve into something healthier or whether they will remain paused, like that business website, still technically open but emotionally suspended, is the loop that keeps the story alive and keeps viewers leaning forward, waiting for the next scene, the next conversation, the next honest admission that might finally clarify whether what was once unbreakable can transform rather than disappear. What makes this chapter even more intense is not the obvious disagreements, but the quiet realizations that surface when everyone finally slows down long enough to reflect. Because after the baptism celebration fades and the dinner plates are cleared, the deeper questions remain hanging in the background, like unresolved echoes. And the business email that started it all circles back as a symbol of everything left unfinished. The jewelry website still technically live, the cart still accepting orders, the notifications still arriving randomly, like reminders from a past season of life that no one properly closed. And each time a new message appears asking for a refund or an item, it forces communication between people who no longer communicate naturally. And that forced interaction highlights how different things feel now compared to the early days, when dreams were shared freely, when building something together felt exciting and unifying. And back then, my sister, those scenes prove that unity is still possible, even if the structure has changed. They demonstrate that growth can occur alongside grief, that support can exist without uniformity, and that family can evolve rather than dissolve entirely. But evolution requires courage. It requires acknowledging the hurt without weaponizing it. It requires honoring boundaries without building walls. And as each individual steps further into independence, redefining identity outside the original framework, the central question remains: can shared history transform into a healthier connection, or will it remain a nostalgic memory referenced occasionally but never revived? And this question keeps the audience engaged because it mirrors universal experiences: friendships that fade, marriages that end, partnerships that shift, and the delicate dance between holding on and letting go. And every new development, whether it is another email notification, another milestone celebration, or another candid confession, adds another layer to this unfolding narrative. Because at its core, this is not about conflict. It is about change, about how people respond when the foundation they relied on begins to move beneath them, about whether they cling to resentment or lean into growth. And the suspense lies not in dramatic confrontation, but in quiet decisions, in whether someone picks up the phone or lets it ring, in whether an invitation is accepted or declined, in whether a difficult conversation is postponed again or finally faced. And until those choices are made, the website remains open, the questions remain unanswered, and the possibility of reconciliation or permanent distance hangs delicately in the balance, keeping everyone watching closely for the next sign, the next message, the next moment that could redefine everything once more. And in the end, it was never just about an email or a baptism. It was about trust, honesty, and whether broken bonds can truly heal. If the story touched your heart and you believe real conversations matter, subscribe and become a part of a community that values truth, growth, and second chances.